Hey YouTube, it's ICU. Today we're going to be reviewing the new smart keyboard for the absolutely massive, almost 13-inch iPad Pro. Now it was actually released alongside the device as well as the Apple Pencil. However, I just received it today, even though I ordered it when the iPad Pro is released. So needless to say, this thing is definitely in short supply. Alright, so before we get started here, if you guys want a chance to win a brand new 4th gen Apple TV, just be sure to rate this video up and stick around to the end for complete instructions. With that said, today we're going to be unboxing as well as reviewing the brand new smart keyboard. So let's go ahead and get into this video, first of all by talking about the box. So on the front, it simply says iPad Pro Smart Keyboard, whereas all 4 corners do appear blank. However, when we flip it over looking at the back here, we do have 3 different pictures of it connected to the iPad Pro. The first one is of it just completely flat, similar to how the smart cover actually looks when it's closed on the iPad Pro, except we do have that little bump there, of course, because that is the integration of the keyboard itself. And then 2 other profile pictures where the iPad is actually in the stand mode on the keyboard. Alright, and using my knife here, we're actually going to cut through the plastic wrap that's protecting it. So let's go ahead and puncture that here with the knife and just slide it across like so. Okay, and now it's time to fully take the plastic wrap off of the box here, and we can go ahead and set it down and then lift the lid. Also, one thing to note is that this box is incredibly thin, obviously because the smart keyboard for the iPad Pro itself is also very thin. So again, let's go ahead and set this guy down. Alright, and lifting the lid reveals 2 things situated perfectly on top. We have the smart keyboard as well as a little envelope at the bottom that says designed by Apple in California. So let's go ahead and start there. We can just lift it out of the packaging like so, and refocusing the camera, again, you will notice that it does state designed by Apple in California, as I just mentioned. Let's go ahead and pull these out here. We do have an iPad Pro smart keyboard sheet that just goes over some of the basics of the device as well as how to connect it to the iPad Pro itself. We can go ahead and set this off now, and we just have this 1-year Apple limited warranty, so nothing too interesting there. We can go ahead and set all of this off to the side and return to the star of this video, the smart keyboard for the iPad Pro. So let's go ahead and flip this around here, and you'll notice that we do have this plastic tab toward the bottom that we can use to easily and conveniently pull the device out of the rest of the box here, which we can also just go ahead and set off camera. Now let's go ahead and pull this plastic wrap protecting it off. And you'll notice that it is very similar to the smart cover for the iPad Pro, or for any iPad for that matter. So let's go ahead and set that down, and I'm actually just going to readjust the view here. Alright, so now we have 2 different things here. On the left, we just have the iPad Pro with the regular smart cover. We can actually go ahead and take that off now, as well as the smart keyboard. So I'm just going to kind of compare these 2 for you guys. It looks like we do have the same exact polyurethane type material, so it does look very nice, and it is very similar to the smart cover. In fact, if you happen to spot one of these in the wild, chances are good you would likely mistake it for a smart cover unless you happen to notice the last 2 flaps on the iPad Pro's smart keyboard. So let's go ahead and bring this into view. You'll notice it is considerably thicker right here. It's basically just like 2 stacked on top of one another. That's because this extra layer is the keyboard itself, and we should actually have a sheet protecting it. If we go ahead and lift this up here, you'll notice it does expose the keyboard, and we have this little sheet that we can just pull out like so. It's actually tucked up in there, and there we go. We have the keyboard for the iPad Pro. And also one thing to note is that we do have the connectors right here in the actual flap itself. So the magnetic flap that will attach to the iPad Pro, these are the 3 contacts that will actually be used to send power and data back and forth between the keyboard and the iPad Pro. Remember, these contacts are built onto the larger iPad by default. And one thing that's super interesting is how this smart connector actually works. So instead of having just wires or flex cables run down to the keyboard, because obviously the power and data have to come from somewhere and they have to be connected to this point somehow, Apple has actually used a type of smart fabric that's able to send power and data. And they say that it is foldable for the life of the device and that it will never wear out, supposedly. So in theory, I should be able to bend this as many times as I want, and it won't actually have any adverse effects on the keyboard itself. So this guy is actually pretty expensive. I haven't talked about the price yet, because I wanted to mention the innovation that actually went into developing this smart keyboard before we went over the price. So that type of smart fabric, we have about 3 different strips here that actually connect it to the keyboard portion itself. And that's almost certainly how Apple is justifying the price of this smart keyboard accessory in their minds, though it is still definitely expensive from a consumer standpoint. So I'm going to bring my iPhone over here. I'm just inside of the shop accessories portion of the Apple Store app. And when we actually go to mice and keyboards, it's at the top there, the smart keyboard for the iPad Pro. It is $169 and it only comes in one color. So this kind of darker gray color. I like that color personally, though I'm sure other people might prefer a different color option. And either way you slice it, I think the value of the smart keyboard is definitely higher than that of the Apple Pencil. If you happen to miss out on my Apple Pencil review, I highly recommend watching that. I will have it linked for you guys on your screens now if you're on the desktop version of YouTube. So let's actually get into how we connect this to the iPad Pro. I'm just going to set the traditional smart cover off to the side now, and we're going to look at the contacts on the iPad Pro. So to do that, I wanted to get a close-up of the iPad Pro. These are the connectors that I was talking about previously. They're just on the same side that the cover actually attaches to, and they are magnetic and they send both power and data. So let's go ahead and get this guy connected and we can give a demonstration of that. And getting another close-up for you guys, we just have to bring it near the edge of the iPad and it will automatically attach like so. And then we just have to place the iPad kind of inside of this grooved area on the keyboard, and then it will enter its stand mode. So let's go ahead and do that. As you can hear from that magnetic latch sound, it is firmly in place. So now we can actually use the keyboard accessory with the iPad Pro. We don't have to pair it inside of settings because it's not Bluetooth. It just sends the data over those contacts. All right, so here we are. Now that I've readjusted the camera, I can give a demonstration of this. I'm just going to open up the Notes application here, and you'll notice that I already am inside of the split screen view, which is awesome for the iPad Pro, by the way, in iOS 9 here. So that was first introduced with the iPad Air 2 and then the iPad Mini 4. We now have it on the iPad Pro. So I'm going to go ahead and tap done on this note, and I'm actually going to test just how easily I can type on this. All right, so it's going to be kind of hard because I do have the camera as well as my mic kind of cramping my style here, but let's go ahead and try this. So this is a test of the smart keyboard accessory. There we go. So it was pretty easy and pretty simple to type. We do actually have some feedback here when we push down on these keys, though it is covered by kind of a fabric. It feels kind of interesting at first, though I definitely see how you could easily become accustomed to it. Let's actually go over which keys we have on the keyboard. Okay, so this is just a traditional QWERTY keyboard. We do have another row at the top here that just has numbers as well as a few different symbols. We can, of course, press Shift to access those. So when I do press on Shift and then type 6, for instance, we do have that upward facing arrow there, and we have some other cool keys as well. So going over the left hand side, first we have Tab, Caps Locks, Shift, as well as this, which will be able to actually access your secondary keyboard. So for instance, if you do have emojis enabled, this will act as your quick key to access all of those. We have Control, Option, Command, so we can actually do Command Tab to switch back and forth between some of the open applications that we have, which is really cool. And we do just have a traditional spacebar at the bottom, another Command and Option key, arrows in all directions. So this is a full-fledged keyboard. We have Shift over on the right-hand side like we do on the left, and Return and Delete up at the top there. All right, so as I mentioned before, a quick Command Tab will actually access the open applications, and when you press it briefly like that, it will just go to your previously opened app, but because we're inside of the split screen view here, it was just going over to Safari, which we already have open inside of that second pane. But when we actually go to hold it down there, you can see we do have all available applications that are inside of our multitasking interface if we were to actually access that with a quick multitasking gesture there. But we can continue to press Tab to actually go between these apps here. So you can see when I release on something like, let's go ahead and switch over here to Speed Test, then it will open up the Speed Test app, and we can switch just right back to Safari like so. And now we're just inside of Safari again with that quick Command Tab. So that's really cool. And I also wanted to show you guys how we can actually access something else. So let's go over to to the Notes app. And like I said before, when we actually press on that little globe icon there, we do have all of our emojis because this is our secondary keyboard that you can quickly and easily change inside of the settings app under keyboards. But it's best to have just the emoji one here because obviously you're not going to really be able to access those on the physical keyboard itself. Instead, you can just press that key and then pick your selection on the touch screen and type it like so. And of course, it is adding those emojis there just inside of that note that I have open. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize the keyboard now, and we're actually just going to select some text. So I'm going to do Command A, and it actually selects all of it, which is really cool. So we can then press Command C to copy it. We actually had a little pop-up there explaining what we can do with it. And then I'm going to press Return, Command V to paste it. And as you can see, it did paste it just inside of that note accordingly. I'm going to do Command Z to undo it. And when we actually hold down Command, like I said before, we do have a list of all different options. So let's go ahead and get a close-up of that. So just for formatting, we can use Command B to bold. We can also access italics. We can underline it. We can change the title, heading, body. We can turn it into a checklist. We can mark something as checked or create an entirely new note just with Command N, which I just did right there. So my concluding thoughts for the smart keyboard accessory, it's very functional. You can actually use all different commands that you'd find on a traditional keyboard, and something like OS 10, for instance, we can select all of it. We can then copy it or cut it out entirely and then paste it as many times as we want, or we can undo things just with those various commands using the traditional command key. I also like how easy it is to actually switch back and forth between apps just with Command Tab, and how we can simply access all emojis by pressing on that globe icon. Of course, you can do other things with the actual keyboard itself. Typing on it is very fluid, so this is another typing test. And I kind of messed up there toward the beginning because, like I said, it is a little hard to actually type on this thing on camera, but overall I think it is very easy and very fluid. It seems that it is a little bit cramped though, with this top row being butted up against the base of the iPad Pro. I do wish it would be actually a little bit wider, so that way you will have more access to the top row and you won't accidentally hit the base of it when you try to type with those keys up there. I don't really have any complaints about the material. I think it's perfectly fine. I also think the responsiveness of the keys is pretty great. They feel very nice and fluid when they actually pop up, similar to the 12-inch MacBook. But one thing that I really wish Apple would have addressed is adding different angles to the stand functionality of this accessory. So unfortunately, this is it. This is all we have when we actually want to use the keyboard and set the iPad up like so. We don't have any additional angles. It would be really nice to be able to readjust this and to have different angles when we're actually using the accessory. Unfortunately though, this is really all you get when you're inside of that stand mode with the smart keyboard accessory. Now, one thing also to note is that when you actually go to fold this up here and then place it on the iPad like so, it will actually lock it. So now we are on the lock screen, just like the smart cover. So as you can see here, it does add some extra bulk to it, but overall, I really like the smart keyboard. I think it's a great accessory, especially if you want to use it to type, whether you're writing something like a blog, a novel, or really anything. I think it's absolutely great for that, and you can definitely improve your typing speed with this smart keyboard accessory. Now that about wraps up this video. I really do hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to rate it up if you did. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section, and also just be sure to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter if you want to be updated more often. Of course, you can also click the subscribe button below next to my channel name if you have yet to. And for those of you who want to win a brand new 4th gen Apple TV, all you have to do is just navigate to freeappsfast.com inside of mobile Safari and sign up. It's very simple. Then just download any of the sponsored apps you see in the main section for points, just so long as you do earn points. Then go to the 3rd tab at the bottom and you see that referral link. Take the unique part and post it in the comments section of my unboxing of the 4th gen Apple TV. I will have it linked on your screens now if you're on the desktop version of YouTube. And until next time, this is ICU signing out.